Hello, you malty maltsters. I'm Ralphie, and welcome to the Whisky Bothy, which is a little venue on YouTube, on the internet, where whisky is reviewed by a very rustic, antiquated reviewer in a rusted, antiquated environment. Here we go. This is Ralphie Review 1102, and we're getting to the time of the year, as we get well into October, heading towards November, that people are thinking that if they like whisky, then maybe they should buy what they like at a higher strength. And I've got a very good example of such a whisky here. This is Kilchoman Sannig, which we normally see retailing in the shops at a very respectable 46% natural colour, unchill filtered, so a good solid integrity delivery. But in this instance, this is the cask strength version, bottled in 2024, so it's been on the market for a while, and this is bottled at 58.7%, I think it is. No, 57.8%, nearly there but not quite. This is from the Isle of Islay. It's a heavily peated malt, a classic example of a converted farmhouse that's been repurposed as a distillery, and it's always had a pretty solid reputation and dependability, and many people would consider that the Sannig is the best version, the all-round version of Kilchoman, being a combination of majority sherry casks and at least 25%, roundabout there, of ex-bourbon casks. Now, this is the cask strength version, so naturally, being higher alcohol, they're getting less whisky out the barrel per bottle, and therefore it's going to cost more. But one of your questions might be, hey Ralphie, is it worth the premium to get the additional actual alcoholic content? The percentage of alcohol being higher, therefore, is the flavour in the whisky. Are you simply getting more? And it's quite a complicated situation. There's no absolutely text answer to this. It really depends on what's called the provenance of the single malt, the casks used, the way the blend of single malt is constructed into a small batch. And what I'm noticing with the cask strength Sannig is it's simply a more intense and less rounded version of the 46%, which is sitting on the shelf behind me at the moment, because it's going to be participating in my next review, number 1002 extras. So in fact, what I'm going to do is I'm going to set things up for my next review by pouring a little glass of this. You can see it's a lighter colour. And I'm going to immediately put 1 teaspoon, 2 teaspoons of soda spoon water. That's plain water out the glass from the soda spoon, which is acting as a ladle, and it gives me very accurate and concise measurements. So I have now put 10 millilitres of water into the standard Kilchoman, which I'm going to sit behind me, but you can see, because the evidence is there, they've both been poured at basically the same time. Now, before I add 2 teaspoons of water to this, I'm going to smell it and taste it neat. On the nose, there's a distinct carbony, chimney soot note, a wonderful brittle phenolic note. It's also dark treacle, almost burnt treacle, and there is a note of licorice lozenge as well on the nose. The intensity of the peat is delivering very successfully onto the nose with the additional alcohol. Because when the glass is sitting there, the more alcohol you have in the liquor, in the composition, then the faster that the alcohol evaporates from the glass, and therefore you're simply going to get more on the nose sooner rather than later. First taste. Oh, you're really noticing big, huge, big phenolic blast, almost burnt toffee, intensely peaty, very resinous, got that real old-fashioned, old-school boiler room stroke traction engine, steam engine type character to it. It's an absolute banger, and that's just in the first taste. I will, of course, now be adding water, because on the first taste it's quite abrupt, it's quite aggressive, it's quite concentrated, and therefore we're going to have to knock some of the flavours off and increase the palatability of this whisky by adding the 2 spoons of water to what is basically about 35 millilitre pour. I'm looking at the versimetry in the glass now. It's rolling about there, solid, quite thick actually, quite thready. Another good sign of the natural delivery of the whisky. So it's not been chill filtered or unfiltered with extensive industrial filtration equipment. Going to let that settle down just a little bit and come back to the bottle itself. This costs significantly more than the 46% version of Sanig. And one of the reasons for that is because in the UK, and I'm giving British prices here, oops a daisy, oh dear, do you see that? The little metal medley thing stuck onto the front of the glass has just come off. I'll stick it back on again. Will it hold? Probably not. Never mind. No, it is holding. Jolly good. In Britain, we pay customs and excise duty. That's what they call it. Basically, it's deep state tax. And the reason for this is that taxation, liquor taxation, is based on the raw alcoholic content. So if you have a drink, a beer, a cider, 4 or 5% alcohol, they pay a lot less customs and excise duty than spirit makers who are bottling at a minimum of 40%. And at the moment, it's roughly about £8.60 per litre of alcohol goes in duty at 40%. Now, if you increase it to almost 60%, you can basically add another 50% onto the duty, which means you're £12.50. And that's not the only cost factor, because when distillers bottle their whisky at cask strength, it needs a higher rate of consignment insurance. Because say the lorry transporting the bottles of whisky at 40% happened to be involved in a road traffic collision, it's highly unlikely that 40% alcohol is going to actually explode into flames, particularly when mixed with diesel fuel, which is what lorries run on. However, if you've got a whisky at 60% or roundabouts there, that is far more incendiary, and therefore the distillers have to pay an higher insurance rate on this for the transportation and for the storage of the whisky. So there are other costs involved, not just the fact that they get less whisky out the barrel, and therefore because you're getting less bottles, the cost of the barrel in relation to the bottling simply becomes more expensive. So you see these incremental, relatively small add-on charges that go on to a higher bottling strength whisky. This explains why you're paying a premium. The question is, of course, is it worth it? Well, that's something I'm going to do by a direct side-by-side comparison in my next review. Can also see there's a darker colour in the cask strength version compared to the 46% version. But let's just focus on smelling and tasting this Sanig cask strength now that we've given it that 5 or so minutes just to settle down with the water in it. We'll start with the nose. The nose is wonderfully smoky. It's actually slightly more smoky than the 46%. Yep, indeed it is. So we're actually getting a different Kilchoman experience from the cask strength version. It's more elemental. It's more, can I say it, stormy. It's more northwest gales. It's more elemental. It's more old-fashioned. It's more fusile, absolutely. More mineral oils. It's nuttier as well. What appeals to me more than anything is the resinous nature of it. I have to say, I'm surprised at how much I'm enjoying this, because I do enjoy the standard Sanig, and I was wondering, would I enjoy this more or just find it too different? But that has not been the case. I do find it very different, and I am enjoying it more. On the nose, not a lot of fruit going on. It's absolutely dominated by the peatiness, which is firing on all cylinders. This is a relatively young whisky that spent all its time in active casks, and it really shows. Taste-wise, first taste, we're no longer getting this uptight, concentrated hit. We're getting a peat-led, young, beautifully matured, cask influence, but far from cask dominated. No way, not going to happen. This is a full-on peat monster in monster mode, and it works an absolute treat. It's genuinely exciting. It's genuinely different. It is absolutely challenging. And I would say that if you're looking for your outdoor winter dram, because you're doing a bit of hill walking in the cold, dry air of January up in the mountain ranges of Scotland, this would be a very good alternative to Laphroaig 10-year-old cask strength. It's right up there, but it's distinctly different. And one thing that peat-loving fans, peatophiles like, is the more they experience heavily peated whisky, the more they get beyond the simple peat presence and get to access the character as the palate becomes simply more familiar to the peat sensation. And it's working a treat here. Lots of character. This is a big fruit cake dram where you're not really noticing the fruit because it's so absolutely overwhelmed with some delightful chimney coal tar, chimney sooty, fireside smoky, licorice, burnt licorice, dark treacle, molasses intense, and piquant. There we are, a French word for you. Piquant, so it's really just absolutely sparkling with a high-end flavour notes. And it really delivers. It delivers wonderfully well. If your friend or you like the standard Sanig, you're going to enjoy this as well. You won't necessarily enjoy it more or less. You'll enjoy it because you'll see that it is different. It's simply a different expression of a standard, familiar acquaintance of a brand. It's like finding someone in a different mood under a different circumstance. That's how engaging and interesting it is, if I can make that analogy. So back to the flavour. Dry, savoury, umami, lots of umami, resinous, intensely resinous, sherry resins, dried fruit in the background, dates, absolutely, bitter dates, soft background, sherried prunes, a slight mintiness, the almost eucalyptus notes of bay leaf. This is carrying all of these. When you pour your first dram, just make it a little glass to give your palate time to adjust. That's my recommendation. But for a jaded old hack like myself, I find this spectacularly enjoyable. I really do. This is 87 out of 100. I rate this very highly. This is quite simply one of the most charismatic bottlings we've got from Kilchoman yet. And it's one of these distilleries that just seems to have a quiet profile in the whisky world. It's got its hardcore small group of fans, but with bottlings like this, that group's definitely going to grow sometime soon. How could they top this? Simple. Single casks, a series of single cask bottlings, one after the other, or a series of triple casks, so 3 casks blended into one, and then matured together in one cask and then bottled. That's where you go from here. But this is pretty high up the desirability chart, particularly if you're a peat fan. See you soon.